Hi, this is an explanation for week 9. You already started the very first activity by viewing this video, and I'm going to move on to explain the next activity, which is always our social emotional learning activity. You're going to view this video, and you're going to respond to the questions after viewing the video that based on your observations from the lesson. You can use the social emotional cultural anchor competencies framework that you can find below if you can't find your own. And you're going to post your responses in this Dropbox. So these are the questions you're going to respond to. Which social, emotional, and cultural anchor competencies and accompanying teacher moves do you see taught and or modeled in this lesson? Now you may only find one. That's great. You may find more than one. There's no set answer to that question except for what you believe based on what you've learned so far from studying the guide, anything you found on the internet, looking at the framework. Now you need to also, after you have identified the anchor competencies in any of the accompanying teacher moves, you need to then show evidence for how you see the anchor competency or the move that you selected, the teacher behavior. You can refer to the framework to guide your analysis. The second question is, how do you think the teacher's attention to these anchor competencies may have contributed to her students' academic success and ability to thrive? You have to remember that when kids learn the social emotional learning curriculum, the research has indicated that they will be much more successful with the academic curriculum. So how do you think the teacher's attention to these anchor competencies may have contributed to her students' academic success and their ability to thrive in her classroom? What do you think this teacher would have needed to do during the first 6 weeks of school to get to this point? You need to remember that during the first 6 weeks, always you practice all of your expectations, your procedures, your practices, all of those things, because you have to remember when students come to your room, they may have been in the grade before you. They may have had those teachers' expectations, those teachers' practices, those teachers' procedures, but they don't have yours. It's going to look different. It's going to feel different. The classroom will look different. The classroom will feel different. They need to get used to you. They need to build that relationship with you so that that trust can be built. So how do you do that? You practice those procedures and those practices for the first 6 weeks. I tell my teachers you don't even need to start any academic work. And you can do some integration of review in those 6 weeks, but those first 6 weeks are where your kids learn your expectations and know how to respond. They know what practices and what to do when they come in, the routine, all of those things. You practice, 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 and you will then be able to do more academics because you don't have to keep going back to practicing those and working on those expectations, those procedures, those practices during those after the first 6 weeks. You might need to, after an extended vacation, when kids come back, they will need to have some information given to them again. They'll have to go through and do some practices and procedures, and because they just haven't done that for maybe 10 days or as long as their vacation has been. Last but not least, all right, so then 3, I don't think I've explained that yet. What do you think the teacher need to do? Yes, I did. I just did that during the first 6 weeks. And then your reflection of what's one takeaway from for your own practice. What's one thing this teacher did that you want to make sure you do when you have your own classroom? You can use this framework here. You can use the guide to help you, assist you if you need that. You can use anything on the internet that you found. Now this week is all about poetry after you get through the social emotional learning activity, and you're going to read chapter 11 in the 9th edition of our book. I think in the 8th edition is chapter 4 if you have that. But after reading the chapter on poetry and this following article, you're going to select a book of children's poetry and write a review of the book using the checklist Assessing Quality in Poetry. That's in figure 4.1. It's also in figure 11.1. And the information from the textbook and article, post your review in this Dropbox. You're to read 2 of your colleagues' postings and comment on their reviews. Then you're going to take a look at 2 approaches to teaching poetry. There are at least 2 distinct approaches to teaching poetry. One way is to teach the classics during a concentrated unit on poetry, working on discovering the meaning of a poem and the poetic devices that a poet used to convey the meaning. Another approach is to read poetry aloud regularly and allow students to respond in a variety of individual ways, providing modern collections of poetry for children to browse through, planning and encouraging experience with choral reading, and teaching how poems work when students demonstrate an interest. Discuss the differences in these two approaches. What assumptions does each approach hold? What are the pros and cons of each approach? How will classroom practices differ? How might children's responses to poetry differ? What assumptions does each of these approaches hold? Does the age of the students make a difference in using each of the approaches? Respond to these questions in a Word document and post this in the Dropbox this week, and read 2 of your colleagues' postings and comment. Then you're going to create some poetry workstations. You're going to create 4 poetry workstations which you will use in your classroom. Make sure at least one station involves technology. One station should be teacher guided, and the other 2 stations can involve technology or not. It's up to you. You can find ideas for these stations using online resources such as Pinterest or other teacher websites. Please don't use worksheets unless they're used for instructions. Create a hands-on environment, engaging activities for each of the stations. Post your workstations ideas in this Dropbox. This video is all about creating poetry workstations. Last but not least, and you can do this first or second or whatever you'd like. If it is listed last in the list of activities this week, you're going to, using the information found below, you're going to write either an I am or I am from or a bio poem. I've written an I am from poem, which you can see as the exemplar. There are other exemplars of other types of poems in the information found below. You're going to post your poem in this Dropbox, then you're going to comment on 2 of your colleagues' postings. So we have quite a bit of comments this week that you'll need to refer back to. I'm going to click on my example. I think this is mine. And it is. I'm going to read this to you. I am from 8 is enough, my family too. Pigs, sheep, and cows, an Appaloosa horse of my own. I am from the lawnmower tractor each morn, the swimming club each noon, and family each eve. I am from summer dew, dampened tents, campfires, watermelons, s'mores, and nighttime games in the summer. From shoveling snow, stuck car in the driveway, snow forts, snow fights, and cold, wet clothes. I am from high in the treehouse, my portable record player, the Monkees, Michael Jackson, and the Beatles. I am from my neighbor's woods, tree-swinging vines, learning about the birds and the bees. I am from my first job at a drugstore, stock boy, delivery boy, gopher, to selling men's clothes at major retail establishments. From working through college to a career to teach, I set my vision, dreams, and goals to achieve. From the 1st and 2nd grade church school class taught each summer through high school and college to my first 6th grade class of my own. I'm from years of education, being a dad, 2 daughters, and now 2 grandsons. I'm from generations of life before me and dreams of what the future holds for the generations of years to come. And that's my I am from poem. You could create an I am poem or I am. There is also, I'm going to go back to that for you. There's also the guide, the template for those in this resource here. I have included some additional resources just in case you'd like to take a look at that as well, and keep any of those if you'd like them as well. And that is poetry this week. If you have comments or questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. There is no literacy group this week, so I will see you online. Have a great week.